Adam and Eve had two sons. Their names were Cain and Abel. Cain was the first son, the older brother. He worked very hard in the fields every single day. He was a farmer. He planted seeds in the ground and watched them grow into plants. He grew fruits and vegetables from the soil. This was his job, and he knew the land very well. He spent his days under the sun, tending to his crops and making sure they had enough water to become strong and healthy. He learned how the seasons changed, and when it was the best time to plant. Abel was the younger brother. He had a different job. Abel was a shepherd. He took care of the sheep. He watched over his flock of animals in the green pastures. He made sure they had plenty of grass to eat and fresh water to drink. He protected them from any dangers that might come near. Abel loved his sheep, and he knew each one. He would lead them gently from one place to another, always looking for the safest and best places for them to rest and feed. His life was spent outdoors with his animals, caring for them with a gentle hand. Cain and Abel lived and worked near each other. They were the first children in the world, and they grew up together. Cain, with his strong hands, knew how to make the earth give food. He would plow the soil and wait patiently for the harvest to come. Abel, with his watchful eyes, knew how to keep his flock safe and sound. He understood the ways of the animals and cared for them deeply. The two brothers had different tasks, but they were both sons of Adam and Eve, living under the same sky and sharing the world that was new to them. Even though they were brothers, they were very different people. Cain was a man of the soil, connected to the earth and its cycles of planting and harvesting. His work was demanding and required great strength and patience. Abel was a man of the flocks, connected to the living creatures he protected. His work required gentleness, watchfulness, and a quiet spirit. They were the beginning of a new family on earth, each with his own way of living and working, and each with his own relationship with the world around him. Their lives were simple, but their story would become very important. One day, the two brothers decided to give a gift to God. They both wanted to bring an offering to show their thanks. Cain went to his fields and gathered some of the food he had grown. He brought fruits and vegetables from his harvest. This was the work of his hands, the result of his long days of labor. He chose some of his crops and presented them as his gift. It was his way of acknowledging where all good things came from, a tribute from the soil he worked so tirelessly to cultivate throughout the changing seasons of the year. Abel also wanted to give a gift to God. He went to his flock of sheep. Abel did not just pick any sheep. He chose the very best one he had. He wanted to give something special, something that showed how much he cared. He brought the first and finest lamb from his flock as his offering. This gift was precious to him, representing the best of his work and the deep affection he held for the animals he tended. He presented it with a heart full of gratitude, hoping to please God with the most valuable thing he could offer. God looked at the two gifts. He was very pleased with Abel's gift. God saw that Abel had given the very best that he had. Abel's heart was full of love, and he wanted to honor God in the best way he could. God was not as pleased with Cain's gift. Cain had given some of his crops, but it was not his best. God knew that Cain's heart was not in the right place when he gave his gift. The difference was not just in the offerings themselves, but in the spirit with which they were given to God. When Cain saw that God was happy with Abel's gift, but not with his, he became very angry. His face grew dark with sadness and jealousy. He could not understand why his brother's gift was seen as better than his own. He felt that his hard work was not appreciated. This feeling of jealousy began to grow inside him like a bad seed. It twisted his thoughts and filled his heart with bitterness. He looked at his younger brother not with love, but with a growing resentment that would soon lead to a terrible outcome. God saw the anger in Cain's heart. He came to Cain and spoke to him gently. God warned him about the danger he was in. He said to Cain, "Why are you so angry? If you do what is right, you will be accepted. But if you do not do what is right, trouble is waiting at your door. It wants to control you, but you must rule over it." God was giving Cain a chance to change his heart. He was showing Cain that there was still a path to do good and overcome the bad feelings that were taking hold of his spirit. But Cain did not listen to God's warning. The jealousy inside him was too strong. He let the anger grow and grow until it filled his mind completely. He did not try to fight the bad feelings. Instead, he let them control him. He planned to do something terrible to his brother. He could not be happy for Abel. All he could feel was the sting of his own pride and the bitterness of his envy. The words of God, which were meant to help and guide him, were forgotten in the shadow of his growing rage. One day, Cain said to his brother, Let's go out to the field." Abel did not know what was in Cain's heart. He trusted his older brother and went with him. They walked together out into the open fields, away from their home. The sun was shining and the world seemed peaceful. Abel had no idea that his brother was hiding a dark and terrible plan. He walked beside Cain, perhaps talking about his sheep or the day ahead, completely unaware of the danger that was only moments away from changing everything forever. When they were alone in the field, far from anyone who could help, Cain's anger took over. He turned on his brother Abel and hurt him. In his jealous rage, Cain did a terrible thing and killed his own brother. The first act of violence between humans had happened. Abel, the gentle shepherd, lay still on the ground. Cain stood alone, his anger now mixed with the terrible reality of what he had done. He had let his jealousy lead him down a dark path, and now there was no turning back from his awful choice. After this terrible thing happened, God came to Cain. He asked a simple question: "Where is your brother Abel?" God already knew the answer, but he wanted Cain to tell the truth. He wanted to see if Cain felt sorry for what he had done. But Cain did not tell the truth. He lied to God. Cain replied with an angry question of his own, saying, "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" With these words, he showed that he did not care about his brother and refused to take responsibility for his actions. God knew that Cain was lying. He said to Cain, "What have you done? Your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground." Because of his terrible choice, God gave Cain a punishment. He told Cain that he would no longer be a farmer. The ground would not grow food for him anymore, no matter how hard he worked. He would have to leave his home and his family. From that day on, Cain would be a wanderer, a restless person with no place to call his own. He would have to roam the earth without a home. Cain was very scared. He said to God, "This punishment is more than I can bear. You are driving me away from the land, and I will be a homeless wanderer. Whoever finds me will kill me." Cain was afraid that other people would hurt him to punish him for what he did to Abel. He felt alone and unprotected in the world. But even though Cain had done a terrible thing, God showed him a small bit of mercy. God did not want anyone else to harm Cain. He wanted the cycle of violence to stop. So God put a special mark on Cain. This mark was a sign to everyone. It told them that no one should hurt Cain. It was a sign of God's protection, even for someone who had committed a great sin. God still cared for Cain, even after his punishment. Cain then left his home and went to live in a land called Nod, which means to wander. This story teaches us that jealousy and anger can lead to terrible things. It reminds us to always do our best and to be a keeper for our brothers and sisters, caring for one another.